318. Today we're going to be doing the video that you've all wanted, sculpting. Now I know this is probably the one a lot of you skipped to, but I would highly suggest watching the other videos because they're very important. Uh, so, for this video, I got up out of the couch and plugged in my 3D mouse because I cannot sculpt with a trackpad. And I'm saying that because I mean that. Do not, and I had to move something real fast. Do not sculpt with a trackpad. It's not possible. It is not. This is coming from a person who really tried. But anyways, so we have our model. How are we gonna sculpt it? Like I said before, we have our brushes panel, right? We have 4 brushes that we're going to be using mainly. You can use any brush you want. You will not get in trouble for using any brush you want. However, these 4 brushes that I'm going to be telling you are the ones that work. They do the things that you want. A lot of these will do one thing. These brushes will do everything that you want. The first of those, and the one you're going to use probably the most, besides the smooth tool, is the move brush. The move brush, and you can see it here, and that's why I brought in this low poly flower, which you cannot get this low poly of a model on the light box without like getting that or like a face like that. If you want low poly, you have to make it yourself. And that you guys know how to make it yourself. It's you're halfway there. So we have our low poly flower, and as you can see, the move tool literally is picking the points from the geometry. Just as I said before in one of my other videos, it's just like Cinema 4D in the fact that all it's doing is taking points and pulling them, but just on a larger scale. So if you wanted, and that black isn't great, but like as you can see, if you look on the other side, it's fine. But as you can see, we're pulling points and changing how the polygons react to each other with those points. But all we're doing is what we've always been doing. We're just changing geometry. That's all you're doing when it comes to this stuff. However, you're doing it on a much larger scale. Now, I know you're like, okay, but how do I make a face in this flower? You can't make a face with that. You're right. There's no way you're going to be able to make a face with the flower um, like that. You're going to need to divide the flower. And I showed you how to do this in the other video, but just in case you're wondering, divide, divide. And remember, keep our rendering in mind, but I think I could probably get away with about 6 divides before I have a little bit of problems. But really, you can go pretty high. It depends on what you're doing. So we have our flower really divided. Now we want to make a face. So what I use is the Dan standard for my face. There it is. The dam standard. Sorry, dam standard. And the dam standard, what it will do is it will, as you can see, it's much like the standard tool, but it's a better experience. Look at that. We have a smiley face, and you're like, oh, that's not very good. Look, now it is. See? And so we're doing things we've never been able to do in Cinema 4D. We're pushing things in, and you're like, wait, I want to pull things out. Okay. I think it's Alt. No, it's Alt. Yeah, it's Alt. Okay. Hold down Alt. Oh, look at that. Now we're pulling. I don't know why it changed there, but we're pulling. We're Alt is pull, and then naturally it's push. So really all we're doing is we're pulling polygons and we're pushing polygons, and I just press the mask tool. And that's a good time to tell you about the mask tool. So let's mask something because a lot of you are like, what is the mask tool? I want to use the mask tool. Well, you hold Command or Control on Windows, I think. And then you do this. You put this black on this, you're like, okay, what's that do? Look at that. You cannot edit that anymore. And if you're like, how do I demask? Mask plus Alt. What? That's right. Yeah, the Alt button gets used quite a bit. So just make sure you have that Alt button. But as you can see, we're sculpting. We have the standard tool. We have the move tool. Now you're like, okay, what other brush do I use? We're going to be using the smooth tool. And instead of going to our brush menu, all you have to do for the smooth tool is shift. Boom. We're smoothing. We're smoothing. And smooth really smooths out everything. That was not the smooth tool. It smooths out the faces. It smooths out everything. You want a nice smooth object, you got it. Turn up that smoothness. Now, I said 4 brushes, right? I said move, dam, standard, smooth. What is my 4th brush? Clay buildup. Now, I use the clay buildup instead of the clay brush because the clay buildup has more build than the brush, and this will actually add some geometry to your model. So be careful with this. You can get a little crazy with the clay buildup. But as you can see, we're building onto our model now with the clay buildup. We're building on, and if we want to smooth those out, we're gonna smooth them with the shift tool. Now you're probably like, okay, how do I get my brush smaller? There's a few different ways. Now, as I said in the interface video, ZBrush has a lot of copies, and because I have a really big screen, I can see all of these things. But as you could see in the other video, I couldn't because my resolution was much smaller. So sometimes some of these buttons are hidden because of the resolution you're working on. So just be aware if you're missing stuff, that's why. But here we have our draw size, how big it's going to be. Let's say we want it to be small. We have our intensity. We pull that up. It's going to be even more intense. If we put that down, it's going to be, whoop, Control Z. It's going to be less intense. And then, what's the other one? Oh, our focal point. Yes. Where is that? It's right here. Focal point is just going to be what focal point is in brush. It's going to change the brush's thinness, like the taper and stuff. It doesn't come into effect quite as much in 3D as you'd think, but it is important to keep in mind. Now, if you're wondering, oh, all of these are really hard to get to, hold down spacebar. They're all right here. What? Boom. So yeah, all the sculpting tools you need, basically spacebar. Draw size, focal size, intensity. All right there. And our flower, it turned so ugly. I remember at one point it was a cute smiley face. I don't remember how it got to this point, but here we are. But yeah, guys, that is the basics of sculpting. Once again, masking is Alt, is Command, is Command, not Alt. Unmasking is Alt and Command at the same time. Smoothing is Shift. Pushing instead of pulling is Alt. Pulling is naturally gonna happen. Just remember these things. Experiment. Learn the brushes, but it's not that hard to make anything have a face, which is probably what you want to do. It's what I wanted to do. You just have to probably divide it a few times. But always remember, you can go backwards. You can go backwards in terms of divisions. And fun thing about ZBrush, I didn't say this in the other video. This up here is also a slider. It's your undo. Look at that. You can undo look, and we're back to our smiley flower. Smiley flower. Sorry, I have a speech impediment. And look at it. It's back. Our flower is back. I'm glad because I liked that a lot better. So yeah, that is our undo, and you can go back, forward. The moment you make a change, though, you're going to be asked, uh-oh, you're going to lose all this stuff. You press OK. Now you can't go forward anymore. So that is, keep in mind when you make a change in an undo, you lose what you did in the future, if that makes sense. So yeah, that is sculpting. That is how we sculpt. Uh, have a good day.